Who Gets to Decide? A liberty-based podcast that brings a little piece of sanity to a confused society drowning in a culture of craziness. And here is your host, Seth Martin.
Well, all right. What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Who Gets to Decide. This is episode 627. I'm Seth Martin, your host. Thank you for joining me this evening. Glad you're here and happy you're listening. Well, today I'm going to be talking a little bit about Candace Owens. You can see her on the screen there. You know, Candace Owens, I've been listening to her show ever since Charlie Kirk was assassinated in broad daylight. And to be honest, I never really followed Charlie Kirk or Candace Owens because they were more in the political machine, which is part of what we're going to talk about today. And, you know, I had kind of written off the political machine a long time ago. I mean, people would try to talk to me about Republicans and Democrats, and I would just go, man, I'm just really not interested in that. What are you, some sort of liberal? You know, I'd get accused of being a liberal and all kinds of things. And it just wasn't interesting to me because, to me, it's two sides of the same coin, that really, when you get right down to it. The interesting thing is, I think, recently Candace Owens has come to the same realization just listening to her show. And, but because of that, she's getting a lot of heat from other people in the community, other podcasters and people with large shows like Tim Pool and they just, you know, obviously Ben Shapiro and people like that. And so I wanted to just kind of wade into that a little bit today because, you know, I think Candace Owens, I don't know, maybe you could say a lot of things about Candace Owens, but I get the really strong impression that she's very sincere. I mean, this person, you know, Charlie Kirk was a friend of hers. She cared for him a lot. They worked together for like 5 years or 6 years or something, traveled on the road together. And I mean, they became really close. And it's, you can tell by listening to her show that it's very frustrating that these other people that he worked with at TPUSA aren't more interested in what really happened there and whether or not the government, the FBI, is telling us the truth. And so she's more or less just dedicated her show to understanding this. It's actually very interesting what she's doing because she has a huge audience. And so she's asking people to provide tips. Did you see something? Did you video something? Just all kinds of stuff. And I mean, it is going in all kinds of different directions. And she's getting people like whistleblower type people from inside the government that are giving her information. It's just a very interesting way to investigate something. And I don't know, she seems to be getting somewhere. She's, you know, as the more she does this, the more people start losing their minds, which usually means you're somewhat over the target. And I just think it's a really interesting dynamic. I don't think this has ever been done in history. I mean, I think this is a first for someone to dedicate this much time and energy in a show around one subject like this. And she hasn't seemed to have lost any followers or anything. She's got as many as she's ever had. So very interesting dynamic going on here with Candace Owens' show. And I think it's leading in a bunch of different directions too. Now, she's never said that Tyler Robinson didn't do it. I've said that, but she hasn't said that. She's never said that TPUSA, that there's some sort of conspiracy at TPUSA to murder Charlie Kirk. She's never said that. These are the types of things you hear people say, oh, Candace is saying this and Candace is saying that. She never said that Erica Kirk was complicit or, you know, somehow was involved in Charlie Kirk's murder. She's never said that. There's a bunch of things that people are saying that she said that she actually never said. And I know because I've been listening to her show. And so there's something about all that that's really interesting and strange. And I don't know. She seems to be working very hard on this. She seems to have liked Charlie Kirk. Every time she brings something up about Charlie Kirk, the people come out of the woodwork and call her a liar, and that never happened, and she didn't do this and that, and Charlie never said that, and then she produces text messages. And so it seems to me she's like one of the only people actually telling the truth about Charlie Kirk and about who Charlie Kirk was, what Charlie Kirk was interested in, what Charlie Kirk's weaknesses were. I mean, just everything. And she's been very candid about all this, and people just keep coming out and saying she's a liar and that never happened. And then she produces evidence that it actually did happen. And here's the evidence. And so it's just, what you see here is you see people piling on against Candace Owens because she's telling the truth. I mean, I firmly believe this. One of the things you learn about when you become a Christian is that the truth is very convicting, okay? People don't like to hear the truth. They don't like to hear the truth about themselves. They don't like to hear the truth about their belief system, about people they hold in high esteem. They don't want to hear the truth. People don't want to hear the truth about Donald Trump. They don't want to, and I'm not, I've been the first one to say I don't think Donald Trump is involved in this Epstein situation the way the Democrats think he is, but it seems to have motivated them to clamor for the release of the files, which I think is a good thing. But I think they're going to be disappointed. I think they're going to find that Donald Trump didn't do anything probably inappropriate with women, young women. But a whole bunch of people did, and a whole bunch of people are being blackmailed as a result, and we need to know who those people are. But people don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear about how Donald Trump's tariffs are a stupid idea. They don't want to hear about where he's using all this force against these boats out in off the coast of Venezuela. They don't want to hear about that. There's something about when you tell somebody the truth. Like if I say, look, he's killing people in these boats, and maybe they have drugs, maybe they don't. We can't tell. We don't know. But just using a drone to eradicate life from the planet Earth because you say that they have drugs and they're narco-terrorists, well, that, as someone who believes in liberty and holds that dear, I don't think that's a legitimate use of force. And I don't believe that the American people have given that level of power to the presidency of the United States. And so I'm against that. Now, could those people be carrying drugs? Of course they could. The bigger problem is, why are so many people in America using drugs? Maybe that's the bigger problem. Anytime there's a demand for something, somebody's going to figure out a way to supply it. That's the market, okay? It just turns out the drug market is a black market, but the market is the market. I mean, there's supply and demand. That's the market. And when there's demand for something, somebody's going to supply it. And if it's dangerous, then it's going to be supplied at a higher price. And the price is going to keep going up until it's either less dangerous or some of that friction is taken out of the market. And make no mistake, the DEA, the FBI, the U.S. military, these are all sources of friction for the drug trade. But that doesn't change the fact that I don't think it's appropriate or within the scope of the presidential powers in the United States of America to just kill somebody on the high seas. I don't think that's legitimate. I think that's an abuse of power. And I think Trump, I've said this before, but Trump needs to be very, very careful here because I think these probably are illegal acts and abuse of powers. And along with his mishandling of the Epstein situation, he could find himself very on the outside in such a way that the Democrats get a majority in the House and the Senate, and he finds himself impeached for real, like for real reasons, and not those quote-unquote trumped-up reasons from the first term. But anyway, I got off track a little bit. Getting back to Candace Owens, I think what Candace Owens is doing is great. She has a friend. She's very motivated to understand what happened, and she doesn't believe that Tyler Robinson acted alone. Maybe Tyler Robinson was involved. I think she thinks that. I don't think she thinks Tyler Robinson pulled the trigger. If that's Tyler Robinson, we see running across the roof. But bottom line is she's doing what she believes is the right thing to do. And a lot of people seem to be behind her. And there is an element of just everything is kind of fake. everything. I was watching a video yesterday, I think it was, and this lady was talking about how our food is fake, our laws are fake, our intelligence is fake, everything is fake. And it's just a narrative. It's not real. And I think she's seeing that, and she sees her friend as a victim of that, and she's out crusading against that. And I think that's a good thing, personally. So I just want to listen to a little bit about what she has to say. There's maybe 3 parts here that I want to cover. This first part is just, I think, important because she's asking very direct questions of TPUSA. Okay. In these communications that people are saying they've had with Charlie Kirk, where he said he was afraid they were going to kill him, who's they? Who is he talking about? TPUSA knows that information, and they're not saying it. They're not saying who they is. There's all kinds of things like that. There's these text messages. There's Charlie's opinion about Israel and what Israel was doing and how they were handling Gaza. All this has been just covered up, and TPUSA is acting like none of it is true. And it was true. It is true because he actually told certain people like Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith and people like that. We even saw the text messages that got released where he was musing about bringing Candace Owens into the TPUSA July event. And people were like, oh, God, please don't do that. Or maybe it wasn't the July event. Maybe it was the America Fest or whatever that happens later in the year. And they were saying, oh, no, God, please don't do that, and that would be a mistake, and so on and so forth. So he was clearly changing his views about Israel, about Israel's influence over American policy, foreign policy, and America's influence in America. Israel's influence in America. These were all things that were bothering Charlie Kirk. It's just a matter of public record now. But TPUSA won't confirm any of that. They won't talk about it. They won't talk about who they was when Charlie told several people that he thinks they're trying to kill him. They are trying to kill me. They won't talk about that. So they're not talking about any of the relevant things. They're just talking about, she makes a joke about it. And they're talking about how great Josh Hammer's book is and all these other things that don't even matter. These are supposed to be his friends. Don't they care about him? Don't they care enough to know or to try to discover what happened to him? And her position is no, they don't. They don't actually care that much. So let's jump into this real quick.
What it must be. And Frank Turek has come out and he's telling us that Blake Neff, we should, even though he seems very insincere, you should know that Charlie told Frank, that actually Blake Neff is the smartest man that he knows. Trust the science. Take a listen.
The night before Charlie was murdered, and I'm not just saying this, but I went into his office. This was after we had a meeting. You were in the meeting, Blake, me, you, Charlie, and some other folks. And he was going to dinner, and he said, hey, you're going to dinner with Blake and Danny. He said, Blake is my secret weapon. He's the smartest man I know. And he loved you. And for anybody to suggest, whether it's Candace Owens or any other person within TPUSA was somehow complicit in his murder, is to say that Charlie Kirk was such a bad judge of character that he put a bunch of traitors around him. If there's anything I knew about Charlie Kirk, is he knew how to spot talent and integrity and people that wanted to make a difference for the Lord and the country.
It's all just so unconvincing and emotionally manipulative. It's so obvious. Like Charlie said that Blake Neff was the smartest person in the world. So you should just accept that. Okay. And that's what he told me. By the way, he had a very busy night before. He told Josh Hammer that his book was the greatest thing and everyone should buy Josh Hammer's book. He had that meeting. Then he had a meeting with Frank Turk and he was like, Blake Neff is the smartest person and nobody should question Blake Neff. It was a lot. Like they're telling us everything he said the night before, except for when he texted you guys and said that he thought they were going to kill him. Can we get to that part? Okay, we get it. Mikey's amazing. Blake Neff's the smartest dude we know. It's right here in the Bible. Can we get to the part of the evening before when Charlie said they are going to kill him, which maybe took place after all of that, all of the compliments that were paid? Guys, please stop. It's so fake and gay. It hurts me. It hurts me. It physically is hurting me. The level of fakeness and gayness that we are reaching at Turning Point USA is starting to make me go, ow. Okay? Please, I'm asking nicely. Can you give us something authentic? Because that's not going to cut it. That's just not going to cut it. How dare you question the ghost of Charlie Kirk? Are you suggesting that Charlie could have possibly not had good judgment? Am I suggesting that I've maybe watched a lot of hours of IDTV and it seems like, yeah, it's a kind of a common theme that when people die, you should question the people closest to them? Actually, yeah, I am suggesting that it's like a very high percentage of murders that are committed by somebody else that they know. I think it's like north of 95% of murders. And no matter how many adjectives you assign to people at Turning Point USA, we're not going to accept this narrative, okay?
Yeah, man, she's right. And I've seen some of these programs on TPUSA. It's all just a bunch of fluff. It's just Charlie loved this person. Mikey McCoy's amazing. Blake Neff is the smartest guy I know. Josh Hammer, I mean, if I'm going to try to understand anything about Israel, I'm just going to read his book. I mean, this is the conversation that's going on at TPUSA. Nobody seems to care that the guy was killed in broad daylight at the first event of the year that they had. Nobody really seems to care. I mean, they may say they care, right? You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying they don't care, but they're not demonstrating that they care. They just are talking about all this fluff stuff that doesn't mean anything. And some of them have said, well, we can't talk about it because it's an ongoing investigation. Well, they have the guy in custody. What do you mean it's an ongoing investigation? You know, I don't know. I don't see, I agree with Candace. I don't see nearly enough energy coming out of these people on behalf of their friend that was killed in broad daylight. I just don't see it. And they obviously know some things, but they're just not sharing them. In fact, they're going out of their way to keep it secret and obscure the truth to some degree. That's what I see anyway.
We're not going to accept this narrative, especially when you're lying and you won't tell us the relevant portions. Who did he think was going to kill him? Andrew Colvett? Can you tell us, Andrew? Can you tell us, Blake Neff? Can you tell us, Mikey McCoy? Or was he just full of fluff? Just full of fluff at the end. Really just wanted Josh Hammer's book to be sold. You're bad at this. You want to know why you're bad at this? Because you're inauthentic. That's why. You're inauthentic. If you start telling the truth, you won't struggle with this issue. Nobody accepts this, okay? All
right, before we get into the other news, yeah, she's right. I mean, there's something about the truth and being authentic that human beings have a sixth sense for. If somebody's lying to you, you can kind of tell. I remember one time years ago, I was working for this guy, great guy, and I can't even remember what the details were, but I went into my boss's office and I told him what the situation was. And I said, you know, what do you think I should tell the customer? And he said, well, I always like to just tell the truth. That way I don't have to remember what I said. And I thought, wow, that's brilliant, actually. Because, you know, if you lie, you have to remember the lie that you told. You have to remember the context, why you told it, and all this other stuff. And that's one of the reasons I think their conversations are so inauthentic. They don't want to have to remember what they said or what they're lying about. And so the effect is you're just leaving out all this relevant stuff. And it's obvious, you know, it feels inauthentic. It feels like they're lying. Now, maybe they're just lying by omitting things. I think I've mentioned this before, but that's why when you're on the stand in a trial, you have to hold up your hand and you have to say, I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. The reason you have to say that is because you can lie directly. You can tell a lie, but you can also lie by not telling the whole truth. And that's called a truth by omission. And maybe that's what turning points do. I don't know. Nobody really knows, right? This is part of the problem. We can't tell. Now, we know they were lying about some things. Like we know, for example, they lied about when Candace Owens was talking about text messages and how Charlie was saying this, that, and the other thing. And they were like, oh, that's not true. He didn't say that. There's no text messages like that. They had the text messages. Some of the people were on the string, the thread. And she came out like a week later and said, yeah, here are the text messages. Liars. So she's called them out like, I don't know how many times now, many, many, many times. And now they've kind of stopped lying, but they're just not telling the truth and they're talking about fluff. That seems to be what the strategy is. All right, let's continue here. She's going to switch to Tim Pool here, which is, let me just say on the outset, somebody fired some guns or something at his house. That's completely unacceptable. I think what Tim Pool said was stupid, and I think, well, we'll get into it, but somebody used some violence as a result of, I don't know what, I actually don't know what as a result was, but Candace Owens brought this up, and we'll go ahead and play it. And then today I heard that somebody fired a gun or multiple guns or something at Tim Pool's house. All right, let's listen to this clip.
News and emotional manipulation. Tim Pool was having some sort of a breakdown. I don't really know what it's about. I don't know why he's tweeting about me all the time. I hope he gets well. But I do want to address this absurd point that he is making about why we shouldn't be speaking about Charlie Kirk's assassination. Take a listen.
You can come and you can burn everything I have to the ground, and I will happily live in a van down by the river. I don't care to be number one. I don't need to be number one. What I care about is what is true and what will help this country and what works. And she is a scumbag, okay? And she's getting worse every day. And she crossed the line. She continually crosses the line every day, insinuating that Turning Point literally killed the guy who made them all rich. And I hear this in the streets, and at a certain point, I'm like, holy shit, we're gonna lose the midterms. We're gonna lose the midterms. Then we're gonna lose in 2028, and it's because she's a piece of shit. Because
all right, yeah. Now I can totally relate to Candace Owens on this. I don't care about the midterms. And I think what we're witnessing in America is more and more people feel like Candace Owens or feel like me. What difference do the midterms make if we are living under some fake government with fake narratives and fake news and just, what difference does it make? I mean, really? I think that's a legitimate question. And I don't know why Tim Pool's talking about this. Tim Pool's never really, I have my guys that I listen to, and they're pretty much radical libertarians. And they almost never talk about, well, that's not true. They talk about politics, but not in the way that Tim Pool is talking about politics here. But I just think a lot of these guys like Tim Pool, and this guy's huge. He's got a huge show, way, way bigger than my little old show. My little show, I mean, you guys need to go tell your friends about my show because it's way too small. But Tim Pool has a huge show. But he got that way by talking about liberty and talking about, a lot of these guys became popular during the lockdowns. And now they're kind of backsliding into politics, it seems like. And I don't think it's not going to do good for Tim Pool and his audience. But more importantly, it's just kind of a credibility thing on his side. And I don't know why he's attacking Candace Owens. Maybe somebody's paying him to attack. I don't know. I thought it was very bizarre, though. I mean, I've never really heard him attack anybody quite like this. But he's almost like no different than some of these other right-wing shows, like a Mark Levin or something, just attacking people. And probably not even listening to her show. Just, it's kind of unfounded. All right, let's continue.
Instead of saying, guys, let's come together and figure out how to work together, she says the stupidest, retarded crap. And now everybody's running around divided and broken. For what reason? For literally what reason?
Like I said, I've been listening to her show, and she's grasping at a lot of things for sure. There's a lot of different rabbit holes she's going down, but they're not implausible. And all this guy can worry about is whether or not the Republicans are going to win the midterm. Think about that. How is that even important? I mean, it'd be like I can just envision that maybe it was like this in 1963. John F. Kennedy's assassinated, and the very next week or a month later or 2 months later, they're back to politics. Well, we got to win those midterms. You know, what's going to happen now? What's Johnson's strategy or whatever as he takes over the presidency? Is he going to stay in Vietnam? No, I mean, yeah, we had a Warren Commission and all that, but it's like, you know, it just seems like a really strange thing to go to. Candace needs to shut up so that we can win midterms. And I think she's got a good take on it here. It's not me, or maybe, I mean, you say it's me, but maybe it's Trump. Maybe it's the Epstein files being ignored. Maybe it's all this fake investigations that you have and these patsies you keep serving up, or, you know, maybe it's a half dozen other things. But why are you saying it's Candace Owens? That just doesn't make any sense to me.
Because they killed Charlie Kirk in broad daylight, and we don't care about your stupid midterms. We just don't care. Like, they really, this is how they view Charlie Kirk. That's what I say. Was anything in his life real? Tim Pool is going off right now because he's like, it's not the time. You guys need to be mules. You need to keep voting in the very corrupt people that are lying to your faces right now about what happened to Charlie Kirk. It is not the time because it is your job to get people into office. This is what I mean when I suggest that nothing in Charlie Kirk's life was real. So he really thinks he's doing something there. And actually what he's doing is proving my point. These people just saw Charlie as a means to an end, okay? As a political horse that they could ride. And so for whatever reason, they got tired riding him. And now they're angry because they also were going to whip the horse, the ghost of Charlie Kirk, and say, we still need you to shore up votes. And it is inconvenient that people who actually cared about Charlie and saw him as a, I don't know, human being, want to know why he was publicly executed in front of us and why we're being lied to about everything. That is why Tim Pool is upset, because midterms, it's going to be my fault, not the fault of the feds for feeding us BS. It's not going to be the fault of Turning Point USA for lying and thinking that they're brighter than us and seemingly not caring about the investigation. It's not going to be the fault of, I don't know, maybe actual politicians like Donald Trump, who's a president of the United States, and look us in the face and said, are we still talking about the Epstein files? No, that's not his fault. The fault is Candace Owens for wanting to figure out who murdered her friend. Don't you guys get it? Like, we're just an algorithm.
Yeah, you know, I can't agree with that more. I tell you what, that is so relevant, what she said there. And I see that about so many things. People want to get the next Republican elected. And I'm sitting here trying to go, if you don't get rid of this fiat money, we are all going down. All of us. I don't care if you're rich or not. You can't make enough money that the government couldn't just print more, or the banks couldn't create more. Okay? That's the problem with that system. And it's accelerating. That's the other problem. This is why your life, it seems to be getting harder faster. Okay? And it just seems pointless to talk about winning the midterms when, you know, in her view, I'm trying to figure out who killed my friend. And I don't know if you guys remember, but I said this after the Turning Point USA event in July, and we played Tucker's speech, and we played a little bit of Dave Smith's debate with Josh Hammer. I said, this is going to be a problem. I mean, I said it just like that. This is going to be a huge problem because Charlie Kirk steered a ship full of a huge number of Republican voters. And all these Republican voters were very much on board with the total destruction of Gaza. Okay? They were all on board. And boy, they would call you an anti-Semite if you said anything negative about it. But what was happening is that was changing. It was changing first in Charlie Kirk's mind, but then it was going to start changing in his followers' mind. He led a huge group of people. And I can guarantee you, and look, it happened anyway, okay? All these people at TPUSA are starting to fall out the other end on this Israel thing because they're just, nobody is that much of a lemming. It's just going to follow somebody around and don't believe your eyes. You're going to look at what's happening and go, oh God, no, I can't be with that. I'm a Christian. Everybody should have a right to life. I mean, in our founding documents, we say that we have the right to the pursuit of happiness, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. People in Gaza, they're human beings too. Do they not have the same right? If our right comes from God, do their rights not come from God? I mean, they may worship a different God, but they still believe that those rights belong to them, that some higher power gave them those rights. So I don't know, but to me, it's just, are we seriously going to talk about the midterms when this is looming out there? The fact that 500 of our politicians may be completely blackmailed and controlled by a foreign power, and we're going to talk about the midterms? No, we need to get to the bottom of these Epstein files. We need to get to the bottom of these things so we can understand what the hell we're living under. I mean, that's where she's coming from. And I agree. I think that's true. And I think it's anything else, any other discussion about anything else is really pointless. I mean, obviously people are going to discuss other things, but all these things are related. They're related to these narratives, their desire to control us, their desire to garner unlimited amount of power and control the world and all this kind of stuff. Look, we got to get to the bottom of some of this stuff. We got to get to the linchpin of all that before we can start getting worried about whether Republicans are driving the bus or Democrats are driving the bus. All right, this next clip is really just a news clip about Tim Pool and this attack on his house, which is obviously horrible, and I'm against this, obviously, and but I would hate to think this was some Candace Owens fan or something like that, but I think it is probably indicative more of the larger scenario that, like, people are pissed that you're worried about the midterms and we're trying to figure out what kind of country we live in. I mean, I think that's what's kind of obvious now in our kind of world, in our, let's call it 50 and under world. The 50-year-olds and under, forget about the people watching Fox News all day long every day. The 50-year-olds and under are like, what the hell kind of country is this? And you got in that group, it's a big tent. That's the thing. It's a big tent. They ought to figure out how to get people coalesced around this tent, because one of the big parts of it is affordability. I mean, look at Mondani, one in New York. The only thing he talked about was affordability. It's like Bill Clinton said all those years ago. It's the economy, stupid. So affordability is a big deal, and I don't think people believe that if the Republicans win the midterms, that affordability is somehow going to magically appear. I don't think they believe that at all.
Welcome back here on Live Now from Fox, and we are following a story that we have been tracking here for a little more than 24 hours after a shooting. Gunshots fired there at the home of Tim Pool, who, of course, is known as a big political commentator with millions upon millions of fans on different social media platforms. Now, I do want to start from the beginning here, because we heard from Pool on social media Saturday as he gave the initial information, saying, "A vehicle approached our property and opened fire. No one was hurt. Our security team is reviewing the incident and will be relaying the report to appropriate law enforcement. This is the price we pay for speaking out against evil." He went on to say, "My immediate thought is someone was trying to scare us, but We have a security gate and armed guards, and it's possible this deterred something more serious. Now, earlier today, he posted this follow-up saying, security believes 3 shots were fired. We are in contact with police and FBI. Thank you for everyone who reached out. If anyone has archived Chicken City, the shots should be audible. Unfortunately, we do not archive the live stream. This would be Friday between midnight and 1 a.m. Important to note, he's asking folks to kind of listen in if they do have that podcast somewhere, because you should be able to hear those gunshots fired. Now, reaction is coming in from all over here. We did hear from Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene posting, quote, "This is terrifying. I'm glad everyone is okay. Everyone must stand together against this type of political violence and intimidation, no matter who it happens to, whether you like them or not." Former Congressman Matt Gaetz simply writing, "So sorry to hear." And we also heard from Andrew Colvette. He is with Turning Point USA, saying, quote, "This is awful. Prayers for you and your team. Please stay safe." Now, all of this, of course, coming months after the assassination of Turning Point's leader, Charlie Kirk. He was fatally shot as he spoke to a large university crowd in Orem, Utah. That was back in September. As for the latest on the shooting here at the home of Tim Pool, no one was injured, but labeled a right-wing podcaster, Pool does have millions.
All right, we're not going to go into all that, but yeah, terrible situation. But I'm just telling you, there's a growing number of people out there that are less and less concerned about what's going to happen in the midterms and more concerned about the affordability of their life, their ability to raise families, their ability to buy a home, their ability to just survive in this new post-COVID economy that's making everything more expensive. It's like the the World Economic Forum people said, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Well, that seems to be where we're headed. They're just going to flood us with fiat money and just drown us in money production, either through the banking system or directly from government. And this is our problem. This is the problem of our time. Okay, there is no greater problem in our society, really globally, but I'm mostly concerned about the United States. But even globally, there's nobody using honest money anywhere in the world. Now, China is trying to change this. They're setting up gold exchanges all along the Belt and Road project. And if we aren't careful, they're going to do it before we could. It would be easier for us to do it and kind of sideline China, but they're going to do it. And they're going to be the ones controlling gold flows and things like that if we don't get this sorted out. And more people can't. Just all of us need to get our arms around this problem and really understand what is creating all these problems in our society. And affordability, there's no doubt about it. Affordability is created by fiat money production through the banking system and also directly by the government, directly by the Federal Reserve. So with that, I managed to get that money situation in the show here today. With that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. Thank you guys for coming in. If you're listening, and I know some of you are listening, I like to listen to podcasts and stuff. I don't watch a lot of YouTube, but YouTube has good algorithms and can find potential listeners and things like that. So if you would, take a pause from listening and go to YouTube, pull up the show, and like and subscribe to the show, and that'll help the algorithm generate more listeners for me. And then if you like, continue to listen in your car. That's what I do. I think that's, I'm in my car a lot, and I don't listen to the radio or sing along to music or anything like that. So if you would do that for me, that'd be great. The other thing is comment on the show. If you got some comments, you don't agree, or you think there's some bigger problem or whatever, please drop a comment in the show. I'll read those and we'll respond. All right. With that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up for the day. Thank you guys for coming in. Thanks for listening. I am out. Peace.